not a thing that's back there. Nobody's one day.
Until we start.
Right.
No, it's right here.
It's your computer.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time.
If it doesn't, then big emergency swap.
You're gonna make
That's the last thing I was saying. He's gonna be like time to my sleep.
That's the last thing you want to say. Just drop him. You think you forgot? You did. I just want to chase him down. I just want to chase him down. He knew. He knew. He knew.
I was so
You felt that. You felt that. You saw him, Jay.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Time being 7 o'clock, I call to order the Franklin School Committee meeting. Meetings are recorded by Franklin TV and shown on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 29, as well as recorded by Franklin Matters. At the conclusion of our meeting, we'll be adjourning to executive session and will not be returning back. All right. Start with our pledge student, Gigi D'Angelo. Come on up. Gigi is a remarkable fourth grade student at Parmenter School who truly embodies our core values. She fosters inclusion by creating a sense of belonging for her peers and consistently shows respect through her kindness, attentiveness, and thoughtfulness. Gigi's courage shines when she shows determination and she shares creative ideas and confidence. As a leader, she inspires others by leading through example and promoting teamwork. Whether brightening a teacher's day with a thank you or helping classmates in need, Gigi stands out as a kind, caring role model, especially in the art room, where her contributions and spirit uplift everyone. We are proud to have her represent our school tonight. So please rise. Take it away.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And just now, as is customary, we'll pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. And Gigi, thank you very much. Get home and start your Thanksgiving vacation early, but right ahead. Really appreciate it. Hey, take care, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
What's that?
All right, routine business, review of agenda. Agenda look okay to everybody?
Does.
All right, payment of bills are in order. Payroll, Vice Chair McNeil.
Payroll's in order.
All right. Our students who are staying out, even though they got no school tomorrow.
That's right.
We're holding them back from vacation. I apologize, but FHS reps, go right ahead.
I'm Jack Aldry, the vice president of the junior class.
And I'm Keaton Cooper, the president of the junior class.
Some news about the whole school is obviously Thanksgiving break is here. Students will have the rest of this week off. Sophomores have already found their junior year prom location. It will be held at Gillette Stadium. Freshman biology MCAS will be taken on June 4th and 5th. Middle and high schoolers are able to sign up in the Franklin Food Pantry's Pantry Elves, where students can help give food to people in need. Sign up closes on December 2nd, and the link is available in the FHS newsletter. Yesterday, there was a successful unified night supporting the Franklin Food Pantry. Also, 14 clubs have returned to FHS. The list is available in the FHS newsletter. There will be a chorus and orchestra concert held in the auditorium on December 10th at 7 p.m., as well as on the 11th at 7 p.m. there will be a FHS band concert held in the auditorium. Student government also led the Thanksgiving Gratitude Challenge, where students could write on a feather what they were thankful for, and FHS had over 1,000 entries.
I filled out my feather. It was a really great initiative. For the sports, Franklin football will take on King Philip Thanksgiving morning at 10 a.m., and this game will be played for the Hockomock title. All winter sports will begin on December 2nd, this upcoming Monday. And congratulations to Franklin Cheer, who have won the Division I state championship once again. As for the class of 2026, The juniors had a successful pie fundraiser with Lyman Orchards, and the pies were collected this afternoon from the library at FHS. And furthermore, there will be a calendar fundraiser for the junior class that will be sold throughout the month of December. For each day in January, there is a gift card that can be won. It'll be a raffle style, and every student who will sell 10 or more calendars will receive a free ticket to prom. That's all.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions, comments from the community?
I just really quickly want to give a shout out to 29 kids from Franklin who made regionals for music, and that covers the whole spectrum of jazz, orchestra, band, and chorus. And 19 are going to all states. So, and awesome to our
A
cheerleaders.
few of those are friends of mine.
The cheerleaders
Thank you.
are unstoppable
Yeah.
too.
I think it's 3 in a row now for the
Yeah,
juniors.
yeah. So congrats to the
Good.
music program, because we all know, they're down to 6 educators in the music program from 22 a few years ago. So it's been annihilated with our budget, but hopefully the community can come to some of the concerts and get behind, giving the kids arts. So thanks for your time. guys.
Real talent in the music department. I know a lot of them myself.
Yeah.
They're incredible. Like, they're incredible.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you guys very much for letting us KP. All right. And superintendent's report.
Okay, so I will try to be concise. Some of the announcements are duplicative, so I'm trying to pick out. Thank you, Ruth Ann, for mentioning the 29 students and the 19 who are going to all states for music. We heard about the Thanksgiving game versus KP. Just a few other fall athletic wrap-up items just to bring everyone up to speed. The fall 2024 season was exceptional for athletes. This fall, 460 student athletes participated. Field hockey, boys soccer, girls cross country, and cheer finished their regular season as Hockomock League champions. Golf finished the regular season as co-champions. Volleyball, girls soccer, and boys cross country finished their seasons in second place. You heard about the league championship already. We talked about Unified Basketball had an amazing season. To end their regular season, the team participated in the Special Olympics Jamboree at Sharon High School, and all teams achieved some level of success and some great levels of success, and every single team qualified for the tournament. With regard to 3 of our coaches, 3 members of the Franklin High athletic coaching staff were named as the MIAA 23-24 Coach of the Year for their respective sports. These coaches were recognized at the MIAA. They will be recognized on December 12th at the end-of-year banquet for the MIAA at the Doubletree in Milford. The coaches were C.J. Neely for basketball, Lisa Berger for unified track, and Jess Pridham, the former coach of the boys and girls swim team. As you heard, December 2nd marks the beginning of the winter season. There's 2 updates to that. One's included in your packet. Alpine ski for the winter sports season is a new sport that was added and offered. Franklin will participate in a co-op with Nipmuc Regional, and the practices will take place at Ward Hill. Just to be clear, there is no cost to Franklin High School to participate in this co-op. They had available space, and they were willing to take on some student athletes that were interested in doing that. So we have individual skiers. The only cost associated with this will be for them to participate through Ward Hill and the fees associated with the mountain. And we're thrilled to be able to offer something to students in a creative way. I want to thank Chris Schmidt, the athletic director from Nipmuc Regional, who also is a Franklin resident, was willing to offer some spots to some students. Girls ice hockey. Unfortunately, as the trend across the state continues, the number of girls ice hockey players is down significantly. Most schools have reached levels where they're either co-oping, as I just mentioned, that model, with other schools to sustain the program, or they've applied to allow waivers for 8th grade students to be able to participate. Franklin has been approved for an 8th grade waiver for participation in girls ice hockey through the district athletic committee, and the waiver sustains the varsity program. We are in an identical situation to King Philip, who was also approved for an 8th grade waiver for their participation as well. And the current number of FHS girls hockey program is 13 skaters and 2 goalies. The numbers are critically low for those particular sports, so adding 8th grade will alleviate that issue. And that seems to be a trend we're seeing across other schools as well. Final note, as we pause for break this Thanksgiving, it's the perfect time to thank our staff, our administrators, our families, and our students for all that they do. and specifically the adults who work with our children in the district. I want to thank the Franklin School Committee, our families, the community for their support throughout the year, and I wish our entire community a peaceful Thanksgiving with family and friends. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kind of questions, comments from the committee?
I think it's unbelievable that we have Coaches of the Year when our town isn't really a town that sponsors sports. It's pay to play. So the fact that we're hanging on like that with these great people, hopefully, I hate to always be the Debbie Downer, but we are thankful for you, and we are thankful for CJ and Lisa and Jess and like these amazing educators. So, and Chris Schmidt, thank you. Community's been stepping up, so making it happen for the kids, and we are thankful and grateful for all you guys. So, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. And with that too, just in terms of the fees, I know we talked about this a little bit at the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
So with winter schedule kind of coming on up,
Yeah.
if any families are unable to or to afford the fee system, how exactly can you just kind of throw it out?
Sure.
How that works?
So we developed a model where right now we have free and reduced applications that families can fill out that have a threshold. It's a federal threshold, meaning across the country for families regarding their income. In Franklin, what we were able to do with some of the one-time money and the money that we received in the summer was build in a threshold. Because we increased fees for the program, we increased a threshold above the poverty threshold. That's a percentage above that. If folks didn't qualify for the federal guidelines, they could reapply to the school district through Ms. Malati's office, and then they would be eligible for free and reduced if they meet the additional threshold tier. So it's based on, it works off of the federal guidelines, which do change throughout the year, and that's what we've been using. Any student who is currently qualified from the fall, if they're a multi-sport or a club, anything that's out there, we would carry that forth for other activities that they participate in. Ms. Malati has a list. She would communicate discreetly with the athletic director to make sure that that's squared away. But we realize that throughout the year, as things roll, new clubs are returned to Franklin High, for example, or if there's a new season for a sport or a new type of opportunity for kids, we want to remind folks. So we will make sure that that is communicated out. Folks are aware as we enter. We'll do this cyclically because I think it's something that we want to refresh the memories of families, or if they're new to this particular piece. So we will have that information out and have it available where registrations are taking place that would qualify for this.
Perfect.
Anything to add to that, Ms. Malati?
No, that's it.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. I know, obviously there was a lot of ramifications and repercussions from the failed override. And just kind of for the community at large, this is one of the bigger concerns that the whole pay-to-play system, the fact that, football is now at $1,000 a season along with other sports. So, one of the many concerns, one of them was those kiddos whose families can't afford to continue to pay at that high rate that unfortunately we're kind of forced to set because of the budgetary constraints. So please, if you yourself are in the situation, or your neighbors, or your friends, please know that there are some levers to be pulled, so that way, these Franklin kiddos can still participate, even if they might not be able to necessarily afford it right now. So thank you very much for
You're welcome.
reframing that. I appreciate that. All right. On to guest presentations.
Okay. I'm excited to invite Dr. Weber and Ms. Virginia Bernstein, one of our Franklin High School students, to provide an update on the theater program. As we talked, Mr. Callahan, you were just talking about budget impacts and implications. And our theater program was impacted severely. And Virginia's here to talk through kind of what's the current state of the theater program. They just are coming off of a successful production, and then I was hoping that she would be able to tease up what's coming in the future. So I would hope she can come up to the mic. Dr. Weber, if you wouldn't mind just teeing up a couple of comments, and then we can kind of go from there.
Happy to tee up. Okay, I will just start by sharing that I was able to attend Outsiders production. I don't know if many of you were as well. It was amazing. Lived up to its expectations and beyond. This group of resilient kiddos just did an amazing job of fighting for what they want.
Thank you.
Respectfully, and working as best they could with the system that we have set up now as an after-school program with Ms. Chloe Selznick as our program director. So it's been great, and I really appreciate the work that they are doing, and I will let Virginia kind of share some of what they're working on this year, and happy to answer some questions after if you have some.
So hello, my name is Virginia Bernstein, and I am the Vice President of our Franklin High School Theater Company. I am here to speak about what it's like and how it's been to keep the arts alive despite these budget cuts. Let me start by saying theater does not just happen. Behind every show, there's an incredible amount of effort, collaboration, and lately, a lot of sacrifice. Yes, we've put on one production this year. We recently closed The Outsiders, which was our senior-directed show that we started our season off. It was a great show. We had a great turnout, and it was really successful. We have put on this production, and we have started our next, which is The Yellow Boat, our competition show, which we participate in METG, which is a statewide competition for theater that we have been doing for many, many years, and it is a very, very important part of our year and very special to us. First, let me tell you what this really looks like. During our most recent production of The Outsiders, 13 teachers who should have been compensated volunteered to stay after school for unpaid time just to make our rehearsals possible. And we, the students, have had to scramble for opportunities that used to be part of our education. Cutting our theater classes hasn't just meant fewer skills learned in the classroom, but it's meant fewer students discovering their passion for the arts. Theater's not just about putting on a play. It's about teamwork and problem solving and creativity and, yes, grit. But there's only so much that grit can do when we're limited in our productions, and each one feels like a miracle we had to pull out of the air. The voters made a choice not to pass the override, and I understand times are tough for everybody, but this choice is robbing students of a full, well-rounded education. Theater is a luxury, and it is a vital part of our community and our creative minds and our development as young people. So I ask to prioritize funding the arts. We deserve a chance to more than just survive. We deserve a chance to survive and thrive. Thank you. We are really excited, and I'm happy to answer questions about the theater company and anything you might want to ask about our upcoming season.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. It happened to, my daughter and I were at the show Saturday night. We saw Dr. Weber. And it was a fantastic performance, and this is great because I thought it would be helpful to really kind of pull back that curtain and kind of show everything else that went, all the sacrifices that were made, all the work that had to be done to get to that point, to an amazing performance. But I'll open the floor to questions or comments from the committee.
I'll always do something.
Yeah. Steve, I'm really proud of you after failed override, how you guys are working and doing the best of fulfilling all your dreams. I'm
Thank
really
you.
proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the support.
I agree. And thank you to the 13 teachers who, are not in this for their high salaries. They're in this for the kids, and you just continue to show up for these kids. And I appreciate them so much. And it's sad that fewer kids are participating, because of course they are. Just like they are in sports, because they don't want to have to come forward and ask for money if they don't have it. And maybe the parents don't even realize they can't, people are busy and working. And, you guys it really does teach project management. I mean, this is a curriculum. And it's not in the middle of your day. My daughter was in orchestra in middle school, that was cut, so it matters. When it's an after-school program, it doesn't break up your day. It doesn't kind of give you like a chance to kind of get with your people during the day and like relax. It's sort of like a recess almost. So sorry about that for you guys. And not along with project management skills, you're learning about government, because I remember how you so eloquently came and spoke at some of the budget hearings last year, and we're out on 140 with signs with the teachers, and I think you wore prom dresses one time to get attention from some of the writers. So
Thank you.
Love the theater kids. The art programs, those are the community that tend to show up you know, the most, because they've been annihilated over the years, so. And now the sports parents are showing up big time too, so we're gonna have an army this spring, so, anything we can do to try to advocate, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm pretty sure we're all up here kind of, you know, raising awareness about this as much as we can.
Thank
So
you.
Thank you.
That means a lot.
Thank you, so much for coming and giving us this update, and congratulations on the success of the Outsiders. And it really is a testament to all the work that you're doing, your entire group, and the volunteer teachers to put these still high-quality productions on with the lack of resources. So it's a testament to just your grit and determination, but it's absolutely unfortunate that these are the circumstances that they have to happen under. So I just echo the comments of my colleagues. Congratulations and great job.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you for coming here, first of all. I think folks that are watching here, if you wonder what is the Portrait of the Graduate and what does it mean, that is our Portrait of the Graduate right here. As you can see, she's come here to represent her organization. I mean, we're asking a student to do this. This is kind of sad. This should be done by our educators that are fully funded. We shouldn't put this on the back of our students to speak and plead on a program that will help them present themselves in a way that is not something that most adults can do. I commend her and her peers for all the things that they do, finding resiliency to establish this program, and as a community, we all should feel sad that we failed them. The students shouldn't have to plead for their successes. They should not have to plead for the opportunities that their peers have received previous years. We as a community need to do better. We lost a great director from what I've heard. I don't know the person, so I can only go by what I've heard.
He was incredible.
But we can see what it has built in them to be able to carry on that torch, run with it, and find a way to succeed. I did not see The Outsiders. My son did. He's had a great time. And it just showed an 8th grader to see his older peers do this work, how the potentials are endless, right? So I'm excited to hear that you are participating in METG. I heard last year was great. I know last year we supported it and hosted it.
Yes.
So I guess this is a question for Dr. Weber and Superintendent Jagir. Are we hosting it this year?
Unfortunately, no, but the fact that they're even able to participate this year is a win, because it's a shift for them. I think hosting is in particular kind of a great experience.
Yeah, hosting is incredible. You get to meet and support so many other theater companies from around the state. But yeah, unfortunately, we won't be able to host this year, which we do almost every year. For every year that I've been here, we've hosted, but we will be traveling this year. So we are very, very, very grateful to still have this opportunity.
Thank you. And I mean, glad that you're in it, but once again, we have phenomenal facilities. I mean, I would think that other schools are envious of what we have at the Franklin Public High School, and by not being able to host it, we're not showing the opportunities that we provide our students. So like, it's a shame. I'm assuming there's also, because we're not hosting it, there's an added cost that we didn't have in previous years. Is
Yes,
that correct?
travel fees are a big one. We have to get all of our students and our cast and the crew and the adults where we need to around the state to our different host sites so that we can compete.
Okay. So because of our short-sightedness due to the immediate financial concern, we've added additional financial burdens that we did not anticipate, which does not get included in the total cost of how much things cost us. I mean, people think of what is the price now, but if you take no action, as we said before, there is a price that we do not encounter and account for, and it gets forgotten. Because we won't talk about how much this has cost the student. We won't talk about how much money these 13 teachers have lost and spent out of their own funds to support these kids and have continue their dreams. Were you about to say something, Dr.
I
Weber?
was just about to say too, with METG, those additional costs have to be there. The program is working to using some like fundraising efforts to pay for it. It's not part of the It's a little bit beyond the allocated funds, so in order for them to participate, we really needed to come up with a financial plan to make it work. And also part of that, Ms. Selznick was saying that maybe some of the set designs and products that they would produce before we had a program during the day, and more time for the after-school program and more resources. The set designs and things were much more elaborate, and this year it will still be wonderful, but it will be much more subtle and just have a different sort of tone or vision to it.
We used to be known, we've won many, many awards for our set, for our lighting, our sound design, acting. In every aspect of theater, our school has been doing very, very well. We were known for our sets. We had very elaborate and hard to put together sets, which if you know anything about METG, you only have 5 minutes to set up and take down your set for your 40-minute show. So it's hard to produce something that is so magical and beautiful while still being able to set it up and take it down in 5 minutes. So with the budget cuts, we are really working towards trying to produce the same level of set that we can, but it's very, very difficult too with the things that we are given.
And I commend you for that passion, energy, commitment. My concern is this can only go for so long. Teachers can only volunteer for so long until they realize, you know what, I'm not being supported, and why bother? And the embers that are keeping this alive go out, and we no longer have this, and people say, you know, we have an empty auditorium. It's there to hold, you know, supplies. It's not there to hold audiences. It's not there to entertain and educate and give these opportunities. So I think people need to really think about their decisions and how this truly impacts the communities at whole, and what it's taking away from our students, because if this continues the way it is, in 2, 3, 4 years from now, we may not have a Virginia coming here to speak and represent the Portrait of the Graduate as well as she is doing currently. And I really hope that that's not the case. I hope that we bounce back and flourish, but I think people need to understand that we've lost a big thing, and right now the kids are keeping it alive as best as they can, and it is very sad that as adults, we cannot help them and we put this on their back. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am a bit of an echo down the line. Thank you so much for coming and sharing more about this incredible program, and also for shedding light for the community on, you know, the real impact that the failed override has had, and how it's impacted this program. So thank you very much for coming, and congratulations on what was a great show.
Thank you. We really appreciate the recognition and support from you guys. It really helps to know that there's people behind us, backing us up.
Virginia, if I may too, you mentioned the senior director.
Yep.
Kind of elaborate on that as well.
Yes.
If you don't mind.
Yeah. So each year at Franklin High School Theater Company, usually at the end of the year, it's our last production, we do a senior directed play, which is typically a shorter play, but still full length, that one of the seniors is chosen to direct. And they have full directorial creative freedom with that. And it's a really, really, really good way for a senior to step into a leadership position and be able to show their talent and practice a different aspect of theater that is not usually practiced in the high school theater company. This year, we usually have in past years, we've had our musical first, then we have METG, and then we have our senior directed show. But this year, we switched the season around. So we had our senior directed play first, then METG, and then hopefully a musical at the end of the year. So our past director for The Outsiders was Jason DiMatteo. He did an incredible job leading everybody. He was very driven and hard-working and headstrong, and he really, really has lifted our program off the ground. So props to him.
I started meeting with him back in July, let me tell you.
Jason is great. He's our president of the theater company. Yeah, so the senior directed is a really, really good opportunity for a senior to step into a leadership role.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Yeah, it just really is, Al, you hit it right on the nail. So, you know, we're extremely, you know, right before, you know, Thanksgiving, extremely thankful for the sacrifices that, you know, these 13 teachers are doing, and for the grit and determination that all, you know, you and your peers are doing as well. Because it's not the community that's supporting, you know, this great program, and the outsiders that I got to see. It's, you know, it's the grit and determination that you all are doing. And so I thank you very much. I hope that that's not always going to be the case. I hope the community can come and support you all. Because I know that with all the work that you're doing right here on the shoestring budget that's allocated, it's amazing. And so what can be done is, you know, what we had before. You know, I know we can kind of really be able to kind of just move in terrific directions moving forward with the community's support. And hopefully, you know, you and your peers will be able to see that in years to come. So thank you so much for coming out tonight. You know, especially vacation is here, and you still came and, you know, so we kind of pulled back the curtain and showed this community just what you guys are doing, the amazing work that you're doing, but how difficult it is in the position that we all put you in. I'm sorry for that, but I'm very grateful and thankful that you came here.
Thank you for your time.
All right, and up next, Office of Teaching and Learning presentation.
Is that a Keller reunion there, Mr. Stark? Sorry. Okay, so we are pleased to share with you a presentation from the Office of Teaching and Learning. Tonight we're joined by Dr. Tina Rogers, who's here. Also, Dr. Tim Frazier and Mr. Eric Stark are here, our Humanities Director and our STEM Director for the district. And they've prepared a presentation for you for review. Kick it over to you, Tina.
Sure. Thanks for having us here to present to you. So I'm excited for Dr. Frazier and Mr. Stark to be here with us. I think I often get to share much of the great work that happens around curriculum, instruction, professional development, and I think these two gentlemen do a tremendous amount of work in working collaboratively with curriculum leaders at the levels, building administrators, teachers, educators across. And so I'm excited they're here to share tonight. What I will say is that though they are presenting tonight on MCAS results by and large in grades 3 through 8 and grade 10, these results are not just an indicator of the work that happens in those grade levels. There is a lot of work, as kind of we pointed out with Virginia matriculating through the years. It's not just one grade level that kind of speaks to a data point. The other thing I just wanted to note is that you received a presentation in advance with some data and information. This that you'll see in front of you is slightly different, but there's just some graphics to kind of highlight some points that we want to share with you, but the data that you received is the same. You also received an appendix of information that we won't be presenting on, but if you have questions on that, we're happy to answer any of those. So with that, we will start with the portrait of a graduate, as we kind of talked a little bit about, and I think we saw someone standing here before us exemplifying these traits. But what I would say is that what we work to do in the Office of Teaching and Learning is systematically build structures, make curriculum decisions, professional learning decisions that support students in achieving these skills. So though we're building some content skills, that this is what we're building and striving to do with our students in the classrooms and every day, and drives the decisions that we make. So we presented this to you last year. We wanted to keep kind of some of the presentations similar in structure to last year so that we could talk through like the story that this tells. I think we all know we can analyze data in 1,001 different ways, but wanted to share with you that this is just one data point, that every single day teachers in classrooms, counselors working with students, curriculum leaders, whoever it is in a building that's working with students, are using what we call formative assessment data to determine what students need. So there's some examples listed here: exit tickets, observations, could be like a quick thumbs up in a class. There's so many interactive ways that teachers, counselors, educators generally are collecting data, every single day, to ensure that students are supported socio-emotionally, academically, behaviorally. Then we also have what you'll see presented tonight are summative data points that we use to make some curriculum decisions that we use as one other piece of a data point, but I would just stress it's just one piece of a data point. So MCAS being one, AP exams, unit tests that students might get at the culmination of a unit. I'd also say like SATs, PSATs, those are what we call summative assessments. Last year, we also shared that MAP Growth was a summative assessment data tool, but due to budgetary, due to the budget, we had to, that was a cost center that was reduced, so we no longer have that benchmarking tool to use that data. So with that, I would just draw your attention, you've seen this graphic before. I think we've done some roadmaps with little like cul-de-sac offshoots as examples, but we're really working to build our tiered systems of support so that, again, just every student has access to tier one, high quality instructional materials, instruction with teachers, with educators in the setting, ESPs, everybody. And then some students might receive some targeted intervention, and then some might receive some individualized or very small group intensive support. And those arrows there are representative of like, it's that elevator approach. Everyone enters in on the ground floor. Some may stay on the ground floor, but some might grow up and some might come down at different points in time depending upon what they need. And then the next graphic here, with my left hand with the mouse, we just wanted to show to you all like the investments that have been made over time in the Franklin Public Schools. These are just some examples. This isn't in an all-inclusive extensive list of the investments that have been made at the various tiers at the various grade levels. So like by one example, we just went into an HMH K through 5 literacy adoption. We're in year 2 of that. You see the little penguin guy, that's Gigi, that's ST Math, where I think in year 3 or 4 of that implementation, we have Hegrity. So all of these are just different components of academic SEL supports that we use for students, and this is really the investment of building this high quality instructional material, standards aligned, research-based tools that teachers and counselors and ESPs and interventionists and specialists and all these people have at the ready so that they can support students and where their needs are. So just before I hand it over to Dr. Frazier, just a few highlights of statewide trends. The Department of Ed has reported out that overarching across the state, they had seen a decline in English language arts in grades 3 through 8 and 10 across the board. In math, the results are a bit more stable in grades 3 through 8 with a decline in grade 10. In science, technology, and engineering, they're seeing improving scores in grades 5 and 10, but a decline in grade 8. So those are the statewide trends, and then we'll share the Franklin trends in a bit. The Department of Ed has also shared their key initiative is to maintain their focus on early literacy investment, which is a continuation of work, continuing their attendance campaign and chronic absenteeism since the past, I would say 3 or 4 years now, and then committed to fully funding the Student Opportunity Act, SOA, and universal free meals. And then 2 notes of recognition that are worth sharing are that we had 2 schools in Franklin that were recognized by the Department of Ed. And this was for their 76% of students at Annie Sullivan Middle School and Jefferson Elementary School met or exceeded state targets, which puts Annie Sullivan Middle School in the 78th percentile in the state, and Jefferson Elementary School in the 84th percentile. So pretty remarkable with those recognitions, and I think that all schools have showed some really great results, and so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Frazier to kick that off.
Excellent. Good evening, everybody. Tonight I'm glad to be presenting mostly with a focus on MCAS results, but we will also be talking throughout the presentation about how these assessments inform our curriculum decisions and our actions to support students. Tonight we're going to approach it a little differently than the last couple years. We'll present by content, so I will present all of the English language arts data first, and then Mr. Stark will follow me with math and science data. All right, let's see if I can do this right. in the spirit of our presentation, we thought it was appropriate for us to start with how MCAS data is shared with families. So this graphic here actually comes right off the parent report that comes from the Department of Education with every MCAS result to our families. And we've used the terms exceeding expectations, meeting expectations partially, or not meeting expectations over the last few years. And we thought it was a good idea to sort of recenter ourselves about what that's actually representing. MCAS uses what's called a scaled score, and it's on a scale up to 560. And what students scoring at the 500 level are found to be is meeting expectations. So when we say that, that's in reference to the percentage of possible points that could be earned, and then it's scaled from there. And so this indicates that a student's on grade level when they receive that 500 point scaled score. So we wanted to start there as reference to really trying to see how we start from, more large-scale data and then sort of zoom in on student performance when using a tool like MCAS. So this next chart we were showing you is really a representation of the average student in each of our grades, both for Massachusetts and for Franklin. And as you can see, with one exception, the average student in Franklin is actually meeting expectations for ELA as measured by that scaled score. In comparison to the state, you'll hear me say consistently throughout today that Franklin students are outperforming state averages across the board in the domains that we'll be discussing. However, for us to seek greater opportunities for student learning, we want to look deeper at the data. And one thing you'll notice here when looking for opportunities for where we can support students is that for each of our grades, on the English language arts side, with the exception of 10th grade, our students are within 6 points of that 500 point mark, meaning that many of our students can be moved up, and all of our students have greater opportunity for us to support them in their learning. And so the next few charts are going to give a little more targeted detail of how we can support them and where they've found growth and where they've found success as students. So next we want to look at the data through the lens of domains. And when we speak domains, Mr. Stark and myself, within each there's a number of standards, sometimes dozens of standards, that allow us to target very specifically where students may have opportunity for growth or be ready for extension and new learning. And so in ELA, we're looking from grades 3 all the way up until high school. We're speaking language, reading, and writing. At the elementary level, we were fortunate to begin our journey last year with adapting to implementing a new core program for ELA, HMHs into reading. And when districts typically introduce a new core instructional material with the adjustments to instructional practices, assessment routines, a new scope and sequence for when things are introduced or assessed, it's typical to see a potentially significant decline in the first couple years of benchmark assessments. However, though our scores reflect similar trends in English language arts to the state, we actually saw some growth within our cohorts from 2022 to present, and some cohorts of students actually found success and growth on all 3 of these past years since 2022. All of this can be seen in detail in the next couple tables. As can be seen here, Franklin students are continuing to perform at greater levels than the rest of the state. This chart here represents the percent of possible points earned by Franklin as a whole compared to the whole state as a whole. And as you can see, our students consistently are outperforming the state. But we always, of course, look for greater opportunities for growth. And so on this table, which we're sharing here, we have 3 years of growth data, 3 years of data rather, around percentage of possible points for grades 3, 4, and 5 as it relates to ELA MCAS. And one important trend for us to point out is that we've seen growth consistently, as you can see there, since 2022, though we saw a slight decline last year, which, again, as we said earlier, is consistent with the state. However, as can be seen in the table and indicated with the arrow, last year's grade 4 saw some decline. This decline is consistent with the rest of fourth graders across the state, though we had a decline, I think it's important for us to recognize that our fourth graders still exceeded the state possible percentage of points by 7% in language, 7% in reading, and 10% in writing. So we have an opportunity there to support them. As can be seen here, though, we also see growth made within each domain for certain cohorts. So for instance, our grade 5 cohort, as is indicated by the arrow, saw growth every single year of their 3 through 5 experience in their journey through our schools. Yet, continued growth is always our goal. And when we look for opportunities, we notice that in the domain of writing, there's still our opportunity, there's still 45% of potential points in 5th grade, and quite a bit of opportunity to support that domain. And so you'll hear me speak to writing over this next year or so. When we look at the same data through the 6 through 8 lens, we continue to see that our students are outperforming the state. And when we look at it through the lens of the domain, we note that we're always seeking opportunities for growth. So one piece I'm noting here with this arrow is that the students in 7th and 8th grade, you can see both there, in all domains found growth. So from year after year, we're seeing some growth in performance data there for our 7th and 8th graders. And we continue to see, as is noted on that bottom row there, that writing should remain a focus as there's opportunity for growth in writing at the middle level. Continuing into high school, our grade 10 ELA domains, again, are outperforming the state, though by less of a differential. And when we look at the last 3 years of data over time, the results have been relatively stable for our high school students, with slight variation in language and in writing, but a return to strong performance within reading for grade 10 in the 2024 cohort of 10th graders. So as a team, we look at these trends to adjust our curriculum and instruction to give students greater opportunities to succeed with their grade level skills. So for elementary ELA, though in the first year of a new program, we saw growth since 2022, but a slight decrease in some domains, and then for some cohorts, we actually saw growth. We will continue to make writing a focus over these next months and into next year, with 3 through 8 having great opportunity to increase their achievement as measured by MCAS. And finally, in grade 10, we are still outpacing the state and continue to seek opportunities for strengthening our high school program as well. Next, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Mr. Stark, and I'm looking forward to answering any questions about ELA at the conclusion of the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Frazier. I was grateful to go last because I needed a moment to collect myself after Virginia. As elementary educators, we don't often have the opportunity to see how far our students come since kindergarten. So thinking about Virginia as a kindergartner and seeing here today was special. So with that said, let's shift to STEM. So as I share the data from the mathematics and science, technology, and engineering assessments, I want to convey the story of the teaching and learning that's happening in both of those areas. And I also want to convey my appreciation for our educators' hard and meaningful work, not just on the STEM side, but across the district, pre-K to 12, and also honor our students' growth. So if we move forward and start with math, again, this is a district-wide view in mathematics. The data shows how the average scaled score in grades 3 through 10 was above the state average. And on this slide, it demonstrates how the average scaled score in grades 6 and 7 was lower than others, but I am pleased and confident to share that our teams are working really hard in these grades. So this slide displays by domain the percentage of possible points out of 100 that our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders earned compared to those across the state. As you can tell, these students were above the state average in all domains, and in this grade span, 64 or 65% of students met or exceeded the expectations. This slide displays by domain the percentage of possible points our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders earned over 3 years. The numbers increase slightly or significantly, remain stable, or decrease within domains and grade levels. But as it relates to 3rd, As it relates to 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, these blue circles highlight some variability in the assessment data in this grade span. So I want to take you through that in a little bit more detail. So in geometry, 3rd graders earned 70% of the possible points last year. This is a 15 percentage point increase from 2022 to 2024 for this grade level. Another way to look at the data is by cohort. And so in 2023, 3rd graders earned 57% of the possible points. In 2024, this same cohort of students earned 67% of possible points, an increase of 10 percentage points. And so Franklin students earned last year 8, 13, or 18 percentage points above the state average in this geometry domain. If we think about fractions, we see decreases in the percentage of possible points earned here. However, again, if we think about the story of a cohort of students over time, when we follow a cohort of students from these grades, we see increases of 9 percentage points in grade 3, 12 percentage points in grade 4, and 13 in grade 5 above the state average. So again, if we look at this table just through the lens of those numbers decreasing, that may be one observation, but the real story here is that when we follow this cohort of students over time, we see continuous improvement as it relates to that difference between our district and state average. So as I wrap up this grade span, I want the data for our 3 to 5 grade span to tell the stories of how thoughtful and strategic curricular decisions and the hard work of our skilled math specialists and teachers positively impact student learning. Additionally, at this grade level, it's easy to see the return on investment in our curriculum resources and our personnel. That relates to curriculum and our investment in instructional interventionists. As we shift to grades 6 through 8 in math, this slide displays by domain the percentage of possible points our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders earned compared to those across the state as well. As you can tell, these students were above the state average in all domains. And in this grade span, 51 to 56% of students met or exceeded the expectation. This slide is the same for that 6-8 grade span, and it displays the percentage of possible points that they earned over 3 years. The numbers, again, increase, remain stable, or decrease, but I'll again walk you through some specific examples within this grade span. So these 3 circles represent variability in the data in the 6-8 grade levels. And as we think about specific domains, in this domain, expressions and equations, for example, there was a decrease in grade 7. That's demonstrated here with this blue circle. However, when we look at a cohort, our grade 7 students earned that 52% of possible points in 2024, which is 8 percentage points above the state average. That same cohort of students earned 53% of the possible points in 2023, which was 5 percentage points above the state average. So we'll shift to the number system domain, and in this domain, the percentage of possible points earned in 6th grade decreases. You can see that there with that 52 that's circled. Although Franklin was 3 percentage points above the state average in grade 6. Comparable districts had significantly higher district and state differences, and I think that this presents an opportunity for us. That said, as we think about that same domain, the red circle indicates 55% of the possible points for our grade 8 cohort, which represents 11 percentage points above the state average, and our district and state difference is in line with our comparable districts there. So we'll shift to grade 10. This is a list of some of the domains that are listed here. And again, it represents the possible points for our 10th graders earned in some of the domains. And it can tell the story, you can tell, I should say, that these students were above the state average. And in this grade level, 65% of students met or exceeded the expectations. This slide displays by domain the percentage of possible points that our students earned over 2 years. And again, you see some fluctuation here, but and although it be significant, the part that I want to point out is how our district and state differences have remained consistent. So you see there with the creating equations domain as an example, we were 7 points above the state average in 23 and then 8 in 24. So to summarize mathematics, our students, I'm so pleased to report that our students are performing above the state average. Again, as I previously shared, some strategic curricular decisions related to geometry and fractions are supported by the data in grades 3 through 5. And then as it relates to 6-8, efforts to develop tiered systems of support and invest in curriculum resources will further enhance our student learning in those grades. And there has been a decline in 11 of the domains for grade 10. However, our performance remains above the state average in those domains by anywhere from 5 to 15 percentage points. So we can shift to science, technology, and engineering. And this is a district-wide view of science, technology, and engineering, and it shows how the average scaled score in grades 5 and 8 was above the state average as well. This slide displays by domain the percentage of possible points our 5th graders earned compared to those across the state. These students were above the state average in all domains, and in this grade, in grade 5, 61% of students met or exceeded the expectations. This slide displays by domain the percentage of possible points our 5th graders earned over 3 years. And the numbers decrease and increase within the domains, and we have an opportunity to further support our teachers as it relates to earth, life, and physical science. However, what I want the community to take away related to science is our students' performance within the technology and engineering domain, and then our science practices. So as you can see here, our 5th graders were 9 percentage points above the state average in these 2 areas. And this is important because to be successful, our students must be able to make sense of those earth, life, and physical science and use the science practices to be able to apply their understanding. So now as we transition to grade 8, this slide, again, displays by domain the percentage of possible points that our 8th graders earned as compared to the state. These students, again, were above the state average in the domains, and 56% of students in grade 8 met or exceeded the expectations. This slide represents the percentage of possible points earned over 3 years. Again, the numbers increase and decrease within the different domains, however, remain relatively stable as we dig into the grade level and the domains, and then the standards that are included in each one of those domains. But again, what I want to highlight for the community tonight and celebrate for our students and our teachers is that 70% of the possible technology and engineering domain points were earned, which is 10 percentage points above the state average, and then 58% of the possible science practices points were earned, which is 8 points above the state average. So as we summarize science, technology, and engineering, our students in grades 5 and 8 are performing above the state average. There's fluctuation, as I mentioned, within the domains. However, technology and engineering is a strength for us. The district added instructional technology in grades K to 5 in 2022, then Project Lead the Way to support STEM and computer science skills in 6 through 8 in 2024 this year. The district is also seeking to build off the math and literacy curriculum specialist model that exists in K to 5 to include 2 STE curriculum specialists in 2025, and then students will experience a new STE MCAS beginning this spring.
So as we shared earlier in our presentation, MCAS is really just one data point for us to try to make better decisions on behalf of our students and our school system. And we're working to continually improve our student outcomes by focusing on instructional design, tiered supports, in our systems and structures. And we looked for opportunities to support students to be continuing the development or the adoption of our high-quality instructional materials, and we're supporting students through our commitment to the universal design practices that we discussed throughout the last few years, but we've also been working to align the multi-year professional learning plans for our teachers to those systems. We also discussed how we are looking for opportunities driven by data to work with our teams to grow greater data analysis practices and leverage tools like Panorama and collaborating at a district level, a school level, within content areas and grade level teams. And we're seeing opportunities to continue to refine our curriculum review cycle as well to support being responsive to this data and to make high quality decisions that are driven by not just MCAS, but what we see in the classroom and what we hear from our families. So I'd like to end by thanking you for your time. And the final slide of our presentation, as was referenced earlier, does have further references, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right. Thank you both very much. Appreciate it. Go down the line here.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I have to first say that Gigi is a celebrity in my household. Yeah. I think my kids cut the line to see Gigi a couple months ago.
I wasn't going to say anything, Mrs. Gallagher.
When you talk about, making a change in curricular decisions, specifically, I was thinking of the writing, making writing curricular decisions based on the data that you're collecting. Can you talk a bit more about how planning like that is done across the district and across teams and all the different buildings that we have?
Absolutely. So, for instance, when we look at data that informs really where our students are with the writing process and the tools around writing, MCAS is just one piece of that. But what we do is we dig into those assessments along with grade level curricular materials and the writing that's there. We look to identify where there might be some lagging skills when measured by these different assessments and give students more targeted instruction around that and more opportunities to perform that. So we leverage our leadership teams within the buildings, our literacy specialists in particular at the elementary level, to really design opportunities to have conversations with teachers around the current approach to the instructional routines, the instructional resources, and help craft and coach consistent practices so that we're all moving in the same direction. Because as was shared earlier, for grades 3, well, really preschool all the way through high school, students are increasingly doing the same literacy strategies, but with greater depth and complexity. And so it's important that the teachers are talking to each other and moving together. So collaboration time, looking at the data and trying to target their approach to be in line with each other is very important.
That makes sense. You're talking about collaboration time. Do you see, as the redistricting happens, more opportunity for these teams to kind of interact with each other and make planning decisions related to that?
So I can try to start this one off, but I would say that we have steering committees that are working at the K-5 level and at the 6-8 level currently. And they're working to develop a schedule and prioritize, like, what are those drivers, or what are those, you know, key aspects that we want to hold integral to building a schedule. And I will say at all levels to this point, collaboration time and those opportunities has risen to kind of one of those key factors that they're prioritizing. So I would say yes, we would hope to increase those times, but again, I think it depends on schedules and budget to do so.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Thank you. As always, thank you. I love these presentations. I think it shows a different element of education. I mean, people think of education as we have our teachers in the classroom in front of the students and helping mold their minds and get them there. But at the same time, your Office of Teaching and Learning is critical to be able to help see the bigger picture and see trends, whereas the teachers are in the weeds. So one, thank you for the work that you do in the small group that you do have, because it's not an army of people, it's a small few that's focused on large efforts. So thank you for that. It goes hand in hand with the educators that are in front of the teachers. One thing I'm glad to see that we are performing better than the state average, but I think that's a low bar to compare ourselves to. One thing I would really love to see going forward is us to look to what are the towns or the districts that are performing in the 10% range, and that's really who we compare ourselves to, and not necessarily in the sense that that's our benchmark, but that's our aspiration. You know, like that's who we want to be, and what are the things that they're doing to get to that level, so that we can say, this is where we're at now, and we're doing well, and this is great, and something we should be happy with, but how do we get better? And how are they doing that? And what can we emulate? You know, because I think for me as a student, that was something I'd always do, is I'd look at who was that A student in the classroom, and what were the things that they did to get to be an A student? Are there things that I could copy to mimic them and get to that space? You know, and I would love for Franklin Public Schools to kind of take that mentality as well, to see how do we push ourselves and get past average? Because yeah, average is great, but that's we want to be better, you know. So a lot of comments. Sorry, less questions. Not my normal self. One thing I really enjoyed the presentation. If you could go back to comparing the cohorts and seeing how it translates year over year in their improvement. I think it's with the years and like with the 3 different grades.
Do you have do you like this one?
Just any of them has the arrows with it. I think it's one's just suggestion, just to help make it a little bit more easier. Maybe horizontally having it based off of the cohort, so that you could see side by side. Okay, over year, this is where it is, versus having to use the arrows to say, okay, well, this left column is this year compared to the middle column on the 3rd row, and that, you know, I think it may make it easier visually, so folks can see the trends, because I think this is powerful to see, okay, this cohort is improving year over year, and maybe this one year it didn't improve, but it was because we didn't have the funding for a program, and they didn't get that, you know, like, and we were kind of handcuffed, and we failed them to give them what they needed. So I think that might help tell the story a little bit better. And then the last thing, at the beginning we talked about the UDL investments. I'm glad to see that we've done things like the STMath, you know, bringing GG and all these different programs, based off of the override being that had failed. What are things that we wanted to do that we couldn't have done this year? Can you speak to that a little bit?
So I think there's a few curriculum areas that where we would have maybe purchased some upgraded textbooks, some licensures. We've sought to either hit pause. We've purchased maybe a classroom set other than materials for every student. We have gone back to vendors and said, hey, any chance we can kind of get a discount in one way or another, which many actually have been really gracious We are seeking many different grant opportunities, and then really working within our office to develop a curriculum revision cycle that's predictable, where we're able to predict out, 5-6 years, what those expenditures need to be, not just capital. But there certainly have been areas where we have, there may have been requests for additional workbooks or teacher manuals where we have not been able to deliver those to classrooms. So it's kind of a little bit of a mix, depends on the grade level, the content.
Gotcha. Okay, and then and from a numbers perspective, we would see this possibly in the future years where there may be a dip in some of these scores, and it may be attributed back to us not being able to.
Well, what I would say, anything is possible. I do, and I think we have incredible teachers. We have incredible educators, paraprofessionals, special educators, curriculum specialists, curriculum leaders. Like, it runs like and I know I'm probably naming a few. And I think there's a level of expertise that they bring to the table that no curriculum material can. But to your point, that yes, if we are not able to put the resources in teachers' hands and in front of students, I would make an assumption that we would eventually see that.
Can I add to that? I think also we dedicate a lot of time and energy and resources into training newly hired educators. And then when they leave due to reductions, they leave with that training that we've invested. So investing in people that we hire, and if it's a revolving situation, I think it's a disadvantage in those ways as well. So you have your senior core group of educators. I see one with us today who's a veteran teacher who's been trained in many of the curriculum initiatives over his time in the district. Some of the folks that are newly hired or recently hired who are subject to either a reduction or a bump or some other situation that shifts them and they no longer work for us. If we front-loaded the first 2 or 3 years of their employment, getting them trained up in certain pieces, having a mentor, working on a team, only to leave, that's another opportunity cost.
Makes sense, thank you. And then the last thing, just before I forget, and it was surprising when this was brought up to me, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. So we all had the election where the state chose to, or the public residents chose to vote to remove the MCAS requirement for high school graduation. And one thing that was kind of shocking in the conversation some people I've had is they were like, yeah, MCAS is going away. And I just want to clarify here that MCAS is not going away, and it is just the graduation requirement. So the work that you're doing and the assessment that's being presented here will still continue on as the students continue to take the MCAS test over the years. It's just that it's not tied to graduation.
Correct. It's not a competency determination.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's still important that we all put the same level of effort into this, even though the requirement is out there. So thank you all for your work and your analysis. Appreciate this.
Thank you all for the work that you're doing and putting this data together and for this presentation. Overall, great news, and we should definitely be proud of that, and proud of the work that goes into that, and the excellent quality of teaching and the culture of learning that we have here in Franklin. But to my colleague's point as well, that doesn't prohibit us from always striving for excellence and seeing where we can improve. So it's also important to keep in mind. Just a couple questions that I had, and Mr. Stark, you had mentioned a couple places where year over year the domain percentage of possible points was year over year lower but still higher than the state average. And just so to clarification on that, is that more indicative of the level of difficulty, that the grade level, like across the board, like how much that changed like year over year, if like statewide it's going down?
I think it could be a number of factors. I don't think that anyone can clearly pinpoint an exact reason why there is a significant decline, as Dr. Rogers talked about, in terms of a statewide trend. I think there are some ideas. But I do think that our students, despite that decline, our students continue to perform above the state average, which is good news for us. I would just say as it relates to living in that place of like just above the state average, to your point and to Mr. Charles's point, there are some instances where, as we think about our comparable districts, we are hanging in there. The high school example that I shared, for example, if we think of 10 comparable districts, 1 or 2 of them within this example were on a lower end, but we were right there with some of those other districts, which is really encouraging. But then in other examples, there's instances where we're on the lower end, and I think we could do better. And one of the ways I think in which we're trying to connect with other people is through some of our like local connections and professional organizations across the state, where not only us, but our colleagues, our curriculum leaders, our teachers are networking with people and trying to work together to think about some problems of practice and how we can all kind of learn and grow from one another. So,
excellent. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. And on a similar note, Dr. Frazier, you mentioned that statewide we're seeing kind of a dip in ELA amongst the elementary cohorts. Do you have any insight into that trend?
So statewide, we are seeing the dip. It could be a number of factors. We are in a position, the state has shared, where some of these students being assessed had less foundational skills work, just due to the circumstances of the last few years, and potentially that. But the trend also continues where our students are consistently above the state average for grade. Just to speak to some comparable districts, grades 3, 5, and 8 exceeded the average of those comparables, as presented by DESE when they determine comparable districts. So our students are in a strong position, and that speaks very well to the foundational work our teachers continue to do over the last 5 years, despite circumstances. And so, though we don't have a clear data point for why there's maybe that trend, I think we definitely want to make sure we're continuing to question how we can improve whatever the trend may be.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. Definitely speaks volumes to the work that's being done here in Franklin. And yeah, we should absolutely be proud of that. So thank you. And then one last question. Maybe Dr. Rogers should be the best person for this. And there's some questions from my colleagues regarding curriculum development. And right now we're in a district-wide process of looking at our curriculum review cycle. So how does this and these data play into that, if at all?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think I would say every curriculum area is always at some point in a curriculum revision cycle. And so what we do with this data is make kind of decisions around where a particular area focuses. So I would draw attention to, I think Mr. Stark shared around geometry. That was, and I might be mistaken, but was a key indicator last year. And that the math specialist spent some time because this was at the elementary level where that was noted. And the math specialist spent some time building out intervention supports for that. And I think that's where we see that in those domains that we may see an increase. So I think we use that data not just to make curriculum decisions, but instructional decisions. And then within the curriculum revision process, it gives us a predictable, when we're talking elementary, pre-K through 5 curriculum adoption, we're talking a $500,000 investment. Oh, that gets you, and we were here talking about, do we go for a 3-year license versus a 5-year license? And doing a 5-year license gets us a substantial discount in a way, but it's $200,000 more, but for $200,000 more, you get 2 more years, So we're using that cycle from a fiscal standpoint to allocate those those one-time funds for those $500,000 and plus expenditures. Whereas when we're talking about where does Algebra 2 fall in this curriculum revision cycle, well, there's also an element of how do we budget within our Office of Teaching and Learning budget to ensure that we have high-quality resources for a course for students at a high school. So we're using that curriculum revision cycle to plan for intervention, to plan for capital expenses, to plan for Office of Teaching and Learning, where can we make some investments that are, from a middle school literacy standpoint, what are the novels that we're gonna purchase for middle school? So we'll do all of that within that cycle. So there's kind of different factors that all point to that cycle. Or that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. That's all for me, but thank you all again.
I'm curious, this may be a little off topic. What are some of the comparable districts that DESE labels compared to Franklin? You guys know, just,
Andover, Easton, Grafton, Marshfield, Neshoba, Reading, Wakefield. What is it? Wilmington and Milton.
do you know, I'll email you that list. I'm just curious, like, what factors go into deciding, like, is it population, is it, like, budget?
There's a few factors.
Yeah, sure.
But student population, demographics are two of the main indicators.
For the average parent out there who is like, looking at the budget concerns that we have and say, these curriculum developer, like what is the, big picture kind of benefits of the district? Don't the teachers know what they're supposed to be teaching? Can you guys talk about, I don't mean to make you like defend your positions. I mean, like, seriously, I know these administrators make decisions best for our district. And I have trouble sometimes explaining to, like, I'll use myself, like a layman like myself, of, it's important that we remain competitive and cutting edge and like what's current. So when you're sitting at your Thanksgiving table and you're talking to, Uncle Bob, and he's like, what do you do with the schools and why is it important? Like, what do you say to them? I hope I'm not feeling disrespectful.
Well, I think an example,
It's not meant for that
that I
purpose.
could share is, as we think about, in STEM, as we think about a new science, technology, engineering assessment coming in front of our 5th and 8th graders this spring. One, part of the assessment is based on best practices, but also high quality curricular resources. And the DESE, and then also like nationally, ranks different curriculum resources. And so as we think about a new MCAS for our 5th and 8th graders in science, the assessment is being developed based on 2 approved curricular resources right now. One of them is Open SciEd, which we have in grades 6 through 8 in science. So the assessment that's going to be put in front of our 8th graders mirrors the curriculum that we've made a decision to invest in and support our teachers and train them and provide them with materials. So I think that's one example of making sure that our students have the highest quality materials that are in front of them and our teachers are supported in having the training and the resources to be able to deliver that curriculum.
Yeah, it's ultimately like professional development, because the teachers they're investing all their time student facing. So, how are we going to stay current and competitive?
So one thing I would just add to that, and I won't take much time, but we have a teacher sitting here in the audience who's phenomenal, and many of his colleagues who aren't here are watching on screen. We, all of us, I did not go to school to be a curriculum developer. I went to school to be an educator. And so I think that we have, over time, as educators, developed curriculum. But that's not to say that, the research-based curriculum that we put in front of teachers is not the script. It is not, we always, when we're running through curriculum implementations, we don't talk about fidelity to a program. We talk about integrity. If we want our students to have equitable learning opportunities across the district, we ought to be putting in the hands of our teachers high-quality, research-based, standards-aligned curriculum resources that they can then say, you know what, all of my years, this unit is really great, but I know what's worked with my kids, or I'm going to put my spin on this, or I'm going to, and make those adaptations and modifications and adjustments rather than building from the ground up, which may be different than my colleague that's in a school across town. And so that's part of the reason too, to invest in these high quality curriculum materials that have been vetted by national organizations, local organizations, rather than saying, we're just gonna build it from scratch, which we have gone that. Like, the pendulum has swung in education, and we have done that as educators in Massachusetts. So I think that if we're able to do that for our educators, then they in the classroom, to your point, student-facing, can be making the pedagogical decisions in front of kids and what best meets their one class to another class, and that might be different. But it allows them kind of the freedom to do that, too.
Thank you for answering that, because it's just like, you know, I'm out in the community and I'm talking to people who aren't paying attention at school committee meetings all the time, so it's just good for me to kind of get better versed in your universe. And great job, because I recognized that when you went over the implementation portion, how nothing's lost. And so that speaks to your management of implementing this curriculum in a way that is able to be adopted and implemented and executed in a way that, you know, we don't stumble at all. We just, our numbers keep increasing. So, and it wasn't lost on me also when you talked about that even though our numbers would go down, they were still higher than the average, and not just higher than the average, more points higher than they were the last time. So we are increasing ability, even though we're still remaining above average. We're still getting more above average in a lot of those cases. So, but I still handle the objection out there with some of the community who maybe, you know, don't have children in the school right now, and they say things, and to Virginia, you know, being here for the arts, who say, you know, I see the MCAS scores, schools are fine, so that's something that we always are, like, you know, and to Al's point, like, we shouldn't be aspiring to be at, you know, just above average. And I know that one of the things we asked about is, like, how did the budget impact you? I'm sure class sizes matter for, you know, scores and any sort of assessments. So our class sizes are starting to get really big, and they're above, you know, some of the guidelines that we've tried to do. So we try to get this solved for you guys. And it was a great point that Lucas made about how we're a training ground, a lot of this. Like, so you guys we're doing professional development, we're implementing this, you know, cutting edge curriculum and making sure that we're competitive, and it really stinks when we lose good people. So we're working on it. But thanks. I guess I don't have a ton of questions. This is a little bit above my head, but like, I know you're doing good. Good work.
Thank you. It's a great presentation. Very impressive. The thing is, I'm glad to hear the Jefferson and Sullivan schools achievements. And what can we do as a school, across the school district, to increase the numbers for writing domain? What can we do as a school?
To support the writing domain. So I think
the numbers are very low.
Right.
Since, but it has a huge jump in 2022.
So as I referenced earlier, within each of these domains, we are able to drill down even more into standards and specific standards where students maybe are missing an opportunity to find greater achievement with those questions or those portions of the question. When we look at writing, our goal over these next 2 years, especially 3 through 8, would be to have conversations and get in the hands of teachers, quality instructional routines and practices and resources to target at those specific, maybe potentially lacking skills. So for instance, citing evidence, explaining what piece, explaining their thesis that they put in their writing, and give students more opportunity to write in the classroom. At the middle level, we're working to give them material that would ask more of the students when it comes to writing more often. We're working with our teachers to have those conversations of looking at writing. In our new instructional materials next year, it's greater focus. That is our focus area, is writing as well. And so giving teachers targeted professional learning opportunities around how to leverage these new tools and materials to give students more opportunities with writing. ELA is the same standards with greater complexity each year. So the more opportunity they have to have consistent teaching and pedagogy around writing, the greater opportunity that we can sort of have them take off from there. And so that's our focus for this next year is really giving that targeted support and figuring out where we can get the most, not bang for our buck, but really the most impact for kids. And it will be different with different cohorts of kids. Another area is to leverage our intervention model, which, as you know, is a constant area that we invest in, and to give students an opportunity when they're younger to really have strong foundational skills, so that their encoding and their ability to write is stronger, and then to have, again, targeted opportunities to use those skills in class. So it's a layered approach.
We're doing very good at geometry subjects. Geometry subjects is tougher than the writing subject.
I wish.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
impressive.
Yeah, thank you all so much. One, really just want to echo what my colleagues mentioned, just in terms of those comparables. I'd love to kind of see moving forward, not just the comparison to the state, but just to some of those other districts as well. I think it's just going to be helpful for the entire community to really kind of see, because it's one thing if we're, I'm not going to name names, but to kind of, if we're ahead of, you don't want to be running a race and be proud of beating the slowest kid, in school. We want to kind of really take a look at who else we're, kind of compared to. So I'd love to be able to kind of see that, because I think it's also going to be enlightening for the community. As we mentioned, there's a lot of things that we're not able to do because of the budgetary, financial crisis that we've been in for a number of years. So that's by no means a knock against you guys for the presentation as well. I think it would just be really helpful if we're able to kind of pull in that data. Dr. Frazier, you kind of mentioned early on, talking about some of the numbers that a lot of our students are only like 6 points or so from being able to kind of move up into that next category. Do we currently kind of have the finances to support that and to kind of make that happen? To be able to kind of take those kiddos and move them up into some of those higher categories?
Sure. I mean, as it pertains to the way I structured it and spoke about it, I was speaking to the average student. Of course, we have students who knocked it out of the park, and we have others who are emerging in their skill set, and so the score may reflect that. I think when it comes to language arts and the investment in the teacher, the investment in the professional training around them, and the investment in an intervention model, and the investment in literacy leadership, really to keep training the foundational skills that are so important to making sure kids blossom throughout their experience, the funding required around that has to be consistent and stable. So I think our teachers that we've had bring a wealth of experience that they're leveraging. I think we're putting new materials in their hand, and they've done a wonderful and commendable job about implementing that. But they deserve, meaning them and the teacher and the student deserves a quality program that meets kids when they need to move up that schoolhouse model into tier 2, and our students who are coming into school with maybe a more robust literacy skill set, and investment in that program will pay dividends for the community and for the students throughout their entire educational journey.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And something else too that was just on the topic of money. Mr. Stark, you had mentioned, I think there was STE specialists. Is that going to be in addition? Is that a new cost that will kind of be coming online next year, or?
So I can try to start that answer. So as we, last year, we, at the elementary level, had 6 literacy specialists and 6 math specialists. And you might recall that with the initial budget reductions, we had to reduce 4 of those positions. And then when we had additional allocations from the town, that wasn't the one-time funds, that was part of operating budget. We were able to bring 2 of those positions back, but still had a reduction of 2. So now we're operating this current school year with 5 math specialists, 5 literacy specialists across 5 elementary schools, whereas before we had 6 and 6. So moving forward into a model where we are moving forward a level service budget, and we're moving to 4 elementary schools, ultimately a K2, 3, 5, 2 complexes. After much conversation and having to put a level service budget forward to not increase those positions again, the decision was made to have a literacy specialist and a math specialist in each of those elementary schools. And then given the investments that will be forthcoming in STE, the instructional technology positions at the elementary school, the new MCAS that's coming in 5 through 8, new science instructional materials that will be needed at the elementary level. There was a decision made to invest into STE curriculum specialists. So by a way of level service funding, that's a reduction of 1 literacy and 1 math specialist position.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Because I know, sometimes that Franklin Matters had that myth-busting episode that I was listening to not that long ago, and one of the myths that kind of keeps coming up is talking about, like the schools are constantly spending and we're, expanding and such. So to be able to kind of understand, even when you see something like that, it's not, it's not additive. It's just kind of keeping, just that level service. As we saw.
Please continue.
Yeah, as we saw just a few hours ago during we had a little budget workshop. The biggest drivers, like the expansion, it's stuff like transportation. I think that's going up 12%. Healthcare that the school's operating budget is responsible for, that's going up 13%. So just so that way when folks kind of hear this new position that's being added, it's not an expansion of the overall operating budget. It's just shifting around some of the existing resources. A lot of the added costs that are coming from year over year are stuff, inflationary costs that are completely outside of the school. And so I think just to be able to really kind of reiterate that, I personally, just as a parent, find helpful, and I think helps maybe dispel some more of those myths that might be out there. Did you have?
I was just going to comment that we're still -2 positions from FY24. So, I think you basically stated at the end the point, we did reduce 24 positions. So I think just as a baseline, I think there were significant reductions across multiple areas and multiple roles. And I think your point is well taken around that. As we move forward to level service, it's once again, it's that concept, the analogy of the ocean and the island, and when the tide keeps coming up. If you compare the tide from last year to this year, it's risen, but there are multiple years of tiding that we've tried to stem. So we did stem some of the tide as a result of those. I think Dr. Dutch hit on that today during the workshop. But certainly we're going to continue to put forth and advocate for what we feel we need in order to get in front of you. And it takes a whole system. So it takes multiple areas of a very big system to educate our students at all levels of all ranges. So, yeah.
No, thank you. Yep. And I appreciate that and all the work that you're doing. The decisions that the community has made hasn't made this, easy for everybody, but you're all doing a fantastic job. Everybody in the Franklin Public School community. And on that too, just another shout out just to the whole Jefferson community and the Annie Sullivan community as well, for all the work that everybody, teachers, students, families, all kind of put into it to get that recognition. That's fantastic. So, thank you all so much. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. All right, moving on to discussion action items. You'll find in here we have 4 topics that we'll cover, beginning with policies for first read. So I recommend moving the following policies to a second reading as discussed. ACA, non-discrimination on the basis of sex, and ACA-R, non-discrimination on the basis of sex under Title IX, including sex-based harassment.
All right, I'll now entertain a motion.
Move policies ACA and ACAR to a second reading as discussed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussions, questions? All right, seeing none, vote will come to motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you. Next, I hit on this in my superintendent report, the varsity ski co-op. I'm recommending approval of the request of the FHS Athletics for co-op varsity skiing with Nipmuc Regional High School as detailed. In your packet, I've basically tried to capture the proposal put forth by the varsity program to co-op. Upon further review, I learned that a school committee vote is not technically needed for this, but we have it on here, and I think as a show of support, if you're interested, this is a no cost to the district in an effort to co-op, so I just want to make sure that's out there as part of it, but I would still like to take the vote if you're willing to do that.
All right, absolutely, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the request of the FHS Athletics for co-op varsity skiing with Nipmuc Regional High School as detailed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Almost failed right there. Any discussion, questions?
Yeah, do have a question. So thank you for this. So I see that the fees would be $200 to $250, and that covers the ski pass, the admin fees. I guess I would expect that like there'd be a fee for like the coach that's there. Can you speak to like that?
Because there's already an existing program that has a coach, we, through the grace of the program and the athletic director, they're not charging our athletes to participate, as this is a co-op first year trial pilot to do. Also, we're fortunate we have a volunteer parent who I believe is a level 1 ski coach who is volunteering from Franklin to join the Nipmuc team on a voluntary basis to accompany our student athletes as part of it. So I think it's a matter of trying to co-op to get the program, to get a feel for how this type of, we've never had this sport in our array. I recognize also optically, you know, if we came in and said we're gonna invest funding into bringing on new sports when we've kind of dealing with that was not gonna be possible. So I just think there's a context here where we have an opportunity to do this at no cost, but explore this as an opportunity as we continue to advocate for schools in all of our programs, whether it's athletics or theater or academic programming. So that's why, so we have not been, there's no charge coming from Nipmuc for our athletes to participate in the program.
Okay, so
Besides the fees to the mountain.
Yeah,
and- okay,
exactly.
just
Yeah,
to-
and just to make sure I'm understanding, so because this is an existing program that they've already funded,
Yes.
we're not adding to the capacity. Like if we don't participate, it's still going to run, and they've already paid it in their budget, so we're not.
Correct, and
Okay.
and our athletes need to be transported and
Yep.
meet at the mountain as opposed to having Nipmuc have to flip the bill for the transportation.
Gotcha.
And we
then-
have we are also providing our own coach who's gonna be volunteering.
Okay. But in subsequent years, if this continues, there may be a fee to cover that portion.
If we co-opt,
Yeah.
and I think that could be a possibility, I don't know that that's the case. I can find out, so I don't wanna misspeak. I would need to talk to Miss Ellis
Gotcha.
to learn more, but I'm certainly willing to check in on that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Yeah, I want to say really kind of kudos, was it Ms. Ellis that really kind of helped facilitate this?
It was advocacy from the parent volunteer who has asked for this for multiple years and has been patient and professional and respectful as we've kind of had to navigate through a lot of other things that took priority for obvious reasons. Most of the people in this room know we've had other things that took priority over this, but ultimately through some steady advocacy, collaboration with Nipmuc and the athletic director there and Miss Ellis, I think that was a partnership that they've explored this. They went to the leagues respectively and worked out a plan. So I think it's just kudos to Miss Ellis, Dr. Weber for giving the green light, Mr. Schmidt, who's as I said, a Franklin parent who also saw our need and a way to help. So I think it's a combination of a lot of people collaborating creatively to just provide another opportunity at a time where opportunities are something we're trying to provide where we can.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you very much, and please
Yep.
pass on my thanks to those as well.
I will.
All right. No other discussions, questions, and seeing none, the vote will come on a motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you. Next in your packet, I have the capital requests. So annually, we do the capital request program that the town has in place. Basically, the program is designed to take one-time requests from each of the departments within the town to determine what can be afforded and what can be spent as a way to create improvements that are outside of the operating budget. And this year, you received a document we discussed at the budget workshop and also budget subcommittee that memorializes the initial requests. What I will say is, capital expenditures, it's a collective across the entire town. What we have put forth before you today is an inclusion of all of the things that, if we could afford these, we would do them in 1 year. I would anticipate that once all of the requests are received, we could do like we did last year, is come back to you with a second iteration based on it. But we wanted to put on paper the things that are being requested from our end and some of the priority areas. Most of these priority areas are related to the reorganization in either a necessity, such as moving, or something that would optimize a portion of our planning as we move forward. So that's how these were built. I'll just walk through each of them and let you ask any questions that you may have. So the first of the the capital request was for 2 special education vans in the amount of $154,420. That's for 2 vans that are replacing 2 existing ones that have exceeded their age, both over 13 and 14 years old, and have accumulated a high mileage and are at the point where there's such significant rust that we're receiving reports from the garage around their ability to continue to move forward as we continue. So those 2 would allow us to replace the most aged vans in our fleet and then get back into the capital program to do annual refreshing of replacing vehicle one at a time on the fleet. We've just hit a critical mass. There were years where we skipped a year in replacements because of just competing priorities, but certainly it's our #1 request for you. As we move forward, you'll see here there's a Beta Traffic Design. Basically, Beta is the company that is providing that traffic report that we have been discussing that will be due to us in January. When that report comes out, it will have an assessment, comprehensive assessment of each of the schools. It will also have recommendations and options for each school on how to optimize our traffic and our flow. Nothing at this point prevents us from opening schools as we currently exist. However, we put this request in along with other requests in an effort to look at if we were to chip away at a multi-year process of optimizing traffic and flow and the way our schools are organized, just based on the new organization, having the Lincoln Street complex be an elementary complex and the Washington Street complex be an elementary complex, and then one centralized middle school on Oak Street. What are some things that, if we thought of it through that lens and the new reality that we'll be living, would we change the traffic in any way that would optimize pickup and drop off, basically? So does that make sense? So this is phase 2. So phase 1 is the study. Phase 2 would be to commit to options that develop plans. The only way to get quotes on actual work is to have a design that someone who's doing this work can then quote the work. So this is like the second phase of a sequential process of asking for us to continue to move the ball down the road on these projects. The third is a placeholder for complex signage. So this is not about like a name today of like we need to buy this and put names on signs, but this is more about having a placeholder for the fact that we will need to make sure that the signage in front of our buildings represents the new organization of schools. One, so we don't have confusion with people driving to what they thought was an elementary school that's now a middle school, or vice versa, and that whatnot. So this takes into account a quote from the sign company that they would take down existing signage and replace it with new signage, whatever that ends up being. And it's a placeholder to cover the costs associated across the schools. And the number that you see there, 90,000, includes, there'll be a breakdown, but basically looking at the, I thought I had the, oh yeah, right here, the 4 elementary schools, the 1 middle school, and then the expansion of the early childhood center as well, just to make sure that the signage represents what we're living and is a way, it's actually part of wayfinding. The next you'll see here with a double asterisk, this is a large request. It's a traffic improvement. So I talked about the plan design being the phase 2. Any traffic improvement, the company, we had Collins in the crowd too to answer any questions. They have said, and we've talked with DPW, I've had conversations with the town administrator as well. This is a large amount of money. It's $1 million that is an earmark for whatever comes from this traffic study. If we were to do a prioritized project out of that study, that's the number that was recommended to us to put in as a placeholder. I'm going to reiterate, this is a large request, but I want to put out there the costs associated with some of these pieces. The next piece, so that's part of would be part of a multi-year strategy, and as they conduct their study, we'll take those recommendations, whatever's designed then gets put in, and then this is the money that would account for the cost to create improvements. I also would want to set an expectation that we cannot commit that this improvement could happen to start the school year. So this is about trying to model out. You will see as we get information in January, we plan to model out in the 5-year capital projection, update those projections. We have reorganized our schools completely. We have schools in our capital plan, well we did, that are no longer going to be utilized as schools that had capital requests in them. So trying to reorganize and get ourselves set and reinvesting in the current facilities that we have makes the most sense. And this is separate of operating and the budget concerns that we have discussed at Joint Budget Subcommittee and in other venues that we've had. This is about a separate track for one-time funding that exists within the town, just to be very clear. It's not perpetual. The last two are 2 phases of elementary playground expansions. So the first is for ADA compliant ground. It's rubberized ADA compliance to expand current playground surfaces that are ADA compliant. So what that means is we have right now 5 elementary schools that have kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grades. We're about to go to 2 schools that are going to have kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade. So we've consolidated, but at the same time, we've unified in 2 schools the number of K1 and 2 students that exist in 5 schools. So when you think about playground structures, things like that, you're consolidating, you're putting more kids out on surfaces. Is it required for us to do this? No. However, to optimize our plans, this is why it's in the capital plan. It's a one-time expenditure that results in expanding the playground. There's also a second phase, which includes increasing the number of structures and equipment. So what we know is typically our kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade students utilize playground equipment. 3rd, 4th, and 5th do as well, but not to the same frequency. It's often open space. We had a superintendent roundtable. I had an activity monitor approach me after the meeting and said, I just want you to know, as you're thinking about playgrounds, what I'm noticing, I've been watching kids play for years, and I've noticed 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders like to use equipment, like portable equipment, balls, different structures, things like that, versus the actual swing sets in the playgrounds and things like that. So I think developmentally appropriate would be to prioritize any type of structures that we do for K1 and 2 students as we move forward. So that is the total for our capital requests. We've put them in a prioritized order. And the last piece that is included in this document is the cost to move. So the Franklin Facilities Department in their budget has the move, which is a direct support to the schools, and it's for the reorganization moving costs that would take place over the summer. Right now, we have an earmark date of July 7th for all of the moves to begin, to start to move furniture and materials and supplies across the district, and that is for $339,553 in order to move pre-K through grade 8 across the town in multiple areas and many moving parts. So that concludes the report and summarizes it. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I have folks with us tonight who are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I have no questions, but like if anybody who's watching this or rewatching this does, the notes from budget subcommittee are good. And there's a separate meeting for this, right? Where you go in front of like a subcommittee for town council and present
Correct.
this. So they can catch up on that too. But,
This will also get posted, and this will be available.
but again, it doesn't hit our operating budget. This is outside of that. And I gotta put in my plug for the merry-go-rounds. Those are good equipment for little kids. So they're a thing of the past. That's all I got.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, and reiterate what my colleague just said, these were discussed at tonight's budget workshop, as well as reviewed and approved by the budget subcommittee before this meeting.
Yep. So quick question about a few different things in here. Feels like Groundhog Day. We've talked about vans before, so I'm hoping that we don't have a repeat of the last time when we asked for a van, we got denied, and then subsequent van broke, and then we had to find money to get the van anyway. So let's cross our fingers that it's not a repeat.
We had 4 vans total that were in bad shape. We were able to work within our budget, looking at some other areas of the budget where we were able to prioritize, and we did work with the town administrator to get approval to secure and use, and looking at some of the technology to try to shift, and I think we were able to get up to speed. My belief, based on too many conversations about the van rotations, is that if these 2 vans are approved, we can get back on a normal cycle. You will still see van replacement come up, but our intention is to have it be a singular van replacement on a routine basis in an effort to try to keep up with the fleet. And I think the garage will be happy. I think this is definitely, if there was anything that is definitely in a shared agreement, it's around,
around the vans.
everyone in every department agrees.
Everyone has seen the vans.
Yeah.
Everyone is in agreement that this is a wise investment for the district, and I think we have shared agreement.
Okay,
Is
perfect.
that fair, Paul?
That is fair.
Okay, thank you, yes. Dave, you're gonna talk about the signage, right? I don't wanna steal your thunder if you are.
Oh, well, I had a point about the vans, but you still let.
Oh, sorry.
So keep going.
Sorry. So I know we talked about it, the budget, actually, no, I'll just let you do that. I'll add if I need to. Just jumping down to the playground complex expansion structures. So hypothetically, this gets approved and we get the funding for it. Would this be work that's done over the summertime, or is this something that we then have to look at, like when this could be, the expansion and structure for the pavement and structures? Like where does that fit in the overall work?
If this was approved, our goal would be to, once that's confirmed and the funding's there, is look to work with facilities to order and make the work happen. That said, the bandwidth of facilities is working on the move.
Yep.
There is a bandwidth piece, so I'm very cautious. Just the few conversations I've had over the past 3 weeks is not overcommitting, particularly in a public setting on camera, that we can get this work done. But what we are doing is advocating for the funding. I anticipate the number we're asking for is more than we can afford. And I want to be clear, I want to put out on the radar of the things that we need to ask. I think, just like with anything, when you collect all the requests and start to look at it's like we have to go through an evolution of this process.
Yep.
I would say I would advocate to have that ready to go for the start of school, and certainly do whatever is in my capacity to make that happen. And we would be committed to, if the funding's there, committed to making it happen. But I'm also sensitive to the amount of projects that are happening across the district, across the town, And, you know, we would want to see that happen, but.
No, and fair enough. And I think I asked because I want folks to just not
Set
have
expectations.
those expectations that, yep, okay, it'll be there for September or, August, whatever, for the next school year. So thank you for
Sure.
clarifying that. And then I guess the last thing, I think it's obvious, like, for like the van, if we don't get the funds, but if we don't get the funds for the other things, like the traffic design, could you kind of speak to like what ends up happening?
So we would have a report that would have recommendations. What we will do, regardless of what's funded or not, is take the report, work with our town engineer, our DPW, our team, and start to stage out through the capital process what could be phased in over time. So I don't think any of this gets done in 1 year, but ultimately, if we were to do like we did with school safety, where we upgraded each of the vestibules, it took us time. You know, we had a recommendation that if you really want to make this, you need the double door. And what we ended up doing is chipping away at that process. And I can think back to 6 years ago, just chipping away at, we're going to take this part of it. We're going to put the cameras here and do the access controls. We're going to add a second buzz-in. It took us time, but we did it. And I think what we would want to do for all, I think the best thing we can do is take that report, look at those recommendations, look at the other components of this, like reinvesting in the facilities, and start to stage out over time, and how do we balance the requests. We're just at this unique place where we're trying to create new schools, find the operating budget, also land what could we do before we move in, what has to happen, and then what would help us optimize some of these areas. And what we thought about when working with the principals was around the playground area. That's an optimization. How can we make that a better experience? If it's not this year, we're going to push for it to happen over the next in a stage. The traffic, particularly looking at some of the areas in our district at certain schools, how do we minimize traffic and make it better? But I think that's also a bit of there's a cost to that, and it's in competition with a lot of other competing interests. So I think just as a district and as a community member and a resident, we're going to have to look at this in stages, in phases, but ultimately, these are things that we would prioritize if we were given the funding.
Thank you.
Did you want to say something, Colin?
Well, I think I can add to
Through the chair.
to the design piece. In order to get pricing and quotes and bids for these projects, we would need these designs to move forward. So in the long run of optimizing facilities and traffic flow, the design piece would be necessary to get to that point.
Thank you. So that the capital requests are accurate.
Correct.
For whatever the project is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have any questions. I'm curious what your sign question relates to, because then I might.
It's gonna be number 2. I'll jump into the top then. So, yes, we mentioned you're doing great with this presentation. It's almost like you've done it before. As we kind of discussed just a few hours ago with when you presented this during the workshop, you kind of talked about like the signage.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of elaborate on that? Like, is that for, what exactly is it going to be displaying? Is it going to be permanent? Is it going to be temporary? Does it mean we have the buildings all named at that point?
I think what this does is it earmarks funding to put permanent signage. What I'll say is if we put temporary, we can do banners and put those right over the signposts and do that. And I just know that what I didn't want to have happen is, one, we didn't talk about some of the projects that could exist and then have something out there in a different part of the year, and then we're like, hey, we have to update this, and then we haven't actually accounted for any funding. So the capital project and plan is the only mechanism we have to do this type of work outside of the operating budget, short of grants and things that we may be eligible for, but I'm not sure with grants having, dried up more recently. What I'll say to you is it felt like we should put something down and advocate, because if the decision, whatever names end up being or how this works, we're going to get to a point where they're going to need to be named appropriately so that people know where they're going to school and what it looks like. I think that's just part of it. So it felt responsible to share that this is the cost that a sign company would charge to remove and replace and insert whatever name. There is a piece that we should discuss probably next meeting and talk about is as we start to look at our schools and some of the correspondence that we need to send out to DESE, to MSBA, we need to, at least on paper, put down how we're going to be naming the schools for the sake of having a school that is registered. So when Mr. Stark and Dr. Frazier do an MCAS report, we're able to pull, they need some names to show the new organization. We anticipated that. That was actually in our timeline as a December project. So what I'd say is this was meant to earmark, this is what it would cost to do something permanent. We could choose not to, but I didn't want to end up being asked about how we would do it and not have thought about the mechanism to cost. So what we did is we asked the company to, if we were to rename our facilities, and specifically the ones I spoke about, what would it cost to do that so that it looked appropriate and it fit in context to all the other buildings we have in town and has the appropriate signage. You're welcome.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so we know that the names won't be established come the start of school year next year. So
Well,
the,
a name will have to exist.
well, I mean, the
but-
final name, sorry. So, but what this would cover would the name that we're providing at the start of the school year, and then in addition to this 90,000 will cover when we are ready to change the name, this covers that work too.
Correct. This would be for permanent signage.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure folks aren't thinking, okay, well, it's 90K just for the temporary name and then another fee for when we have the final name.
Right. This would be for, this was priced for permanent signage.
Okay,
That's
cool.
on our existing posts.
Thank you.
I'm just throwing in a pitch to name the schools before next year. I mean, let's not try this out. Just saying.
And that's gonna be coming up, we're gonna discuss that at the next meeting?
I think what we need to do is just, for full transparency, I'm, the name thing on my list of, it's like the alpine ski, it wasn't on my list of priorities as far as the name. I understand the community's want and desire. What I will say though is just for the sake of us being able to register and move forward and have schools, we need to discuss that. So I want to bring that to you, and I don't want to, but I want to talk about how do we do that as we move forward. Naming, you have a policy on naming. There's a whole process that's outlined. I have the authority right now to say, how are we going to register ourselves and communicate and get our schools to be able to move forward and run and not be hung up with, oh, we don't have anything listed as a name. So the middle school, right? It's a Franklin Middle School. I'm not suggesting that that's like what you desire. You have the authority to name buildings. I'm just saying, for my purposes, I'm not as invested in naming them right now as a task, but it needs a name. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Okay. Aaron and I have had many conversations about this, so.
And then just two other ones. One, just in terms of the money and the dollar amount, just for everybody, for those that are still, watching or will watch later, with these capital requests, what's the, what do we have for last year? Is this just totally brand new because of all the reorg?
Last year was 960. So last year we requested approximately 1.2. We came back and revised, and we ended up with
960,000.
960,000. This year, this has 1.8 with a double asterisk next to that placeholder for a big project to do traffic. It's 1.8. That said, I'm anticipating having to have some further discussions with the town administrator, with the committee, to look at this, and I can envision us needing to look at this and prioritize from this list, but it felt appropriate to put forth a capital request that reflected some of those projects.
No, I think it's great, and I think just, for the community, when you see this, again, just, when we talk about the financial crisis that we're in, these are costs and money that's being spent, but it's not completely brand new. It's money that, would have been allocated and had been allocated to other capital projects and now is allocated to a different capital project. And also, I want to, thank you and commend, you and also the activity monitor. And they kind of talked about like the playground, because I remember playgrounds was a big thing that was kind of coming up last spring when a lot of this discussion was hitting the community. And I could see, there was a lot of just get a brand new playground. Let's just keep, let's go and add. So I really, the thoughtfulness and like the measured response to this of, spending, the tax dollars as efficiently and effectively as possible. It's not as, it can be as simple as just buying another playground, but being mindful of the situation and, really making sure that we're not just jumping straight into just kind of, duplicating everything, but instead that measured response to spending the money. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Okay. Any other kind of questions or comments right now?
Sorry to bring up the naming thing. So, I know it's unrelated, so actually, no, I'm not going to bring it up. Sorry.
Just bring up the policy, I'll email it to you.
Well, I looked it up, but I had another question, but I'll do it offline.
Okay, all right. So anything related to the capital request? All right. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the capital request as detailed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion or comments? I'm already thinking about turkey right now. All right, seeing none, vote will call on a motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, now next, student family handbook revision.
All right, so I will kick this over to Mrs. Morano to share with you the student and family handbook revisions, and then I can make the recommendation.
Okay, sounds good. This year, we are going through the DESE Integrated Monitoring Review. It happens every few years. Part of that review is a self-assessment that I completed in this past summer. They have reviewed the civil rights portion of that self-assessment and came back with some technical assistance and asked us to make some revisions to our family handbooks regarding discipline. It's really just clarifying the language around discipline procedures for suspending students with disabilities, procedures for students not yet to be eligible for special education, talking about in-house suspension procedures and alternatives to suspensions that we offer here in the district. So it's really just adding more information for parents to have if their child should need to be disciplined for a code of conduct infraction. So.
All right. First, any kind of questions, comments from the committee? Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the student and family handbook revisions as detailed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion
And
passed.
as a result, I will post the revised versions of the handbooks when we return from Thanksgiving break and send out a communication to all families.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Utilizing the app too?
Of course.
Fantastic. All right, discussion only items, inclement weather notice.
Okay, so this is the inclement weather notification that we put out. It's posted online as well. I need to check with Mrs. Miller if she emailed it directly to folks, but if not, we will do so. Basically, every year we put together basically our process for how we look at schools closing and how we notify. So, the weather in New England obviously it's not a perfect science in forecasting. We do our best. We work hand in hand with the DPW, the highway department, the police, and our facilities to just work to say what's the best decision. We also look at our neighboring communities and our neighboring towns to see, I'm in constant contact with the superintendents from the neighboring communities to see if they're making a specific call just based on what they learn for consistency where possible. Every town is a little different. It all depends on who you have to clear roads, how many people you have doing that, right? How many roads you have, how big are you? But ultimately, we do try to look for that. I wanted to just say that, the factors that we consider is we try to put safety at the forefront. We recognize that it does create challenges for families when school is closed. We know that. If the safety or if the snow is just too much to be able to navigate, the safety will take priority over that. But ultimately, we do recognize that as a district. Basically, the notification of timing, I put in here that families will be notified of a closing or delay by 5:30 a.m. There are times where we have made that call in the evening before, but just to be clear for folks, if we do that, it's because we have information that allows us to make that. Otherwise, we have 5:30 a.m. as a cutoff, because we recognize as buses have to start, get on the roads, and that's what starts the whole triggering effect. Just a couple of other key points. We will be notifying folks through ThrillShare. We also post to the television and radio, and we have social media as well. But the ThrillShare has the app on it now, so we'll continue to do direct email and use the app to notify. Moving forward, if we have no school, the activities are canceled for that day, and then we are required to make up any canceled days at the end of the year. Delayed openings are also an option, so if we know the timing of the storm is everything with a delay, but I would just say that if we know that a storm is coming in, and if I hear and get confirmation from the Department of Public Works that they can clear the snow effectively, and it would take them 2 hours to do so, and we could start school, we would look to try to do that so that we don't have to make up the day at the end of the year, particularly if the roads can be cleared at a reasonable time within the 2 hours of the delay. Moving forward, early dismissals is not something that we strategically do. It's used at rare occasions, but there are times where we've had to dismiss students in my time in not just Franklin, in other districts, where we've looked at the snow either was forecasted to occur at a certain time and it's moved up, and now it's created a bit of a challenge around dismissal. And then we have to make decisions. Sometimes it's safer to remain in school so that plows can start moving snow at 2:15 or 2:45 when the buses are on the roads. And other times, you know, that decision is made and we do that thoughtfully in collaboration. There's also information specifically that I won't cover tonight, but you'll see here the early childhood ECDC and also solutions. There's information in here regarding their process if we have delays and whatnot. Sidewalks are often one of the last things that are cleared within our town. The roads are the priority, and that does take some time. And ultimately, just ask that people just use their discretion and build in time for drop-off. But know that sometimes with sidewalks, if they're not cleared, we do have a process for emergency transportation for walkers. That any bus driving to a school who sees a student outside wanting to go to school, they will pick up and bring them to school as part of that process. Finally, first and foremost, just safety first, and we ask our families, you know, to build in time to leave earlier if needed, particularly on inclement weather days. We do have flexibility at the school level with folks, particularly when it's challenging in weather, but ultimately want to just make sure that we're baking in time. And this is posted online already, but we will be sure to push this out to all families as we start to hit the cold weather and the winter months. So I'm happy to answer any questions. It's not for a vote, but it's open for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much.
Is this in lieu of the snow presentation?
This is in lieu of the, so we do the snow presentation with Brutus every 2 years, 3 years, depending on the committee and whatnot. We did meet with Brutus last week. He did ask and said that he'd be willing to come back to either answer questions or to present, but I felt as though this committee saw that presentation, so we were both comfortable with me sharing this. So I will tell him that he was asked for.
Yeah, he was asked for. That's great. No questions, just curious to see whether we get any snow this year.
Knock on wood.
No questions.
I just want to mention that as part of like the override committee, we met with the DPW, and they've got a real hard time getting snow plows. So it's going to factor in if we have a busy snowy season, and I don't want everybody freaking out on poor Lucas if he has to call school because we can't get the roads cleared in time or the parking lots cleared in time. It may not be, you know, because he wants to sleep in. Yeah. So it might be just because we can't.
Usually we're up earlier.
We're trying hard. That's true. You're probably up all night on those nights.
Yeah.
But we're trying hard to recruit snowplow people. So just like kind of news from the council.
I think you can apply online for that too.
Yeah, you could definitely apply online.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you very much. So two things. So one, now with the new app, I remember before it seems like sometimes online businesses would try to say like, oh, I want to be notified if there's a school closure because
Mhm.
that might impact their own business. So now, before it was just through Aspen and through schools, but
Mhm.
really anybody in the community can download the app. And as long as that's a push notification. then-
Correct.
Perfect.
And Mr. Sherlock's a good example of that, he subscribes to each of our schools and gets the app notification, correct?
When they're sent.
When they're sent, yes.
Okay, so then, follow up on that, so that we'll make sure these inclement, anytime it's a closure or a delay, it's a push notification.
I'll check the box for send as an app
Mhm.
and send it as a direct email.
Yeah.
And even, I think we can even click the phone text.
Mhm.
We have a couple of different tools now in our toolbox that we can utilize, so I haven't thought through all that, but it would make sense to me to do a delay or cancellation and have it sent to all three, just so people can see a text alert, the app, and the email.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
And like I said, I think there's a lot of community members and small businesses. I think that would greatly, it would help for them even to kind of download the app to kind of be notified of that. And then just with that delayed opening, I know a couple of meetings ago, we added on some half days
Mhm.
at the end of the year. So are we currently, like, if there's, too many delayed openings, are we at risk of missing time on learning? Or do we still have enough kind of baked in right now?
We're currently in a good position, but we do, we're not 2 hours off.
Oh,
We're well over.
perfect. Thank you very much.
Good question.
All right,
Okay.
all set, appreciate that. So then moving on to information matters. Superintendent evaluation?
No updates at this time.
What about budget?
Budget, we had a full school committee budget workshop before this meeting where we discussed projections for FY '26 as well as budget drivers, the budget development process, and the capital requests that were discussed this evening. And then we had a budget subcommittee meeting as well where we also further looked at the capital requests and approved them for the vote tonight. And as of now, we likely won't have a budget subcommittee meeting next month. However, there will be a joint budget subcommittee meeting on the 17th of December.
All right, terrific, thank you very much. Policy.
Policy, we just adopted this policy, so, we don't have another meeting till January? Or do we, no, it's the next, when we have the next school committee meeting, because we have budget before this one and policy before the next one. So, maybe we'll bring up the school naming.
December 10th.
That could be something we could try to get done, make things more convenient, give Lucas a name. But that's all really for policy right now.
Okay, thank you. Community relations.
Yep, community relations met on the 19th. We talked about our goals, and our goals are continuing the newsletter. The good part is we're ahead of where we were last year, so our first newsletter is targeting December, but we'll do the same cadence, the first Thursday of every month. And Erwin has graciously volunteered to do the design work, because I'm not a design person, so Erwin will help with that and make it look pretty. So look forward to that, but the same thing, we'll continue that throughout the end of the school year. We talked about having some in-person events, so looking at opportunities of how do we engage the community a little bit differently. One thing that we are looking to do, and I'm not sure if Mr. Jagir has done it so far, reaching out to the town council to see if we can partner with them at the senior center visits, or at least get something that we can get there and speak to them directly. And then another one was around reestablishing the legislative forum. So looking to get that set up a little bit earlier than we've done previously, so possibly end of February, after February break. Talk about the app as well in terms of how do we leverage that better and get some usage and metrics around usage around that. And then our last thing is our next meeting is going to be on December 17th.
Awesome, thank you. And how about joint PCC?
Joint PCC, yes. We also met that same night as well on the 19th, so it was the second of Superintendent Jagier and our doubleheader. So we see a lot of each other, right? We met with the PCCs to get an update of their meetings around next steps in terms of establishing what the PCCs look like going forward next year. They have come to a consensus. However, they've asked us to hold off on communicating as they will be sending out letters to their committees, their families, their communities. I don't know if it's been sent out yet. I thought it might be, but if not, it may be coming soon. So we'll see what they get from them. But on our next meeting, which is also on December 17th, they will provide us the finalized structure. The ask for us was for them to provide the structure, not just in terms of the complexes, but like who's going to be in the committee in terms of the roles and responsibilities. We want to talk about the process to dissolve the PCCs that may not be existing. One thing we've also asked them to do is find out the cost for that so that they can partner together to maybe use the same lawyer to save on costs. And then we'll talk about next steps in terms of election of board members and whatnot. So it's moving along nicely. Definitely great discussions, and I really commend the PCCs for meeting outside of our monthly meetings to get continuing to move along. And really these meetings are just readouts to us and bouncing ideas off of us. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I know there's so much discussion about the PCCs in the lead up to a lot of these reorg votes and decisions. So that's great to kind of hear how it's all moving forward. So thank you very much.
Yep.
How about school wellness? Slack? Okay. Mental health.
Same thing, we're meeting again in January.
All right. And reorganization?
Yeah, we met last week. Updates on progress toward teacher assignments, traffic, transportation, a lot of things we discussed tonight. Looking forward to some community building opportunities as we head into 2025.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to consent agenda.
I recommend approval of the minutes from your November 12th, 2024 meeting as detailed. I recommend acceptance of $8,581.16 as detailed. Keller PCC, $5,950 for field trips, and O'Connor Studios, $2,631.16 for supplemental supplies. I recommend acceptance of $500 from the Massachusetts Special Olympics for supplemental supplies as detailed for ECDC.
All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as detailed?
Move to approve the consent agenda as detailed.
Second?
Second.
All right, questions, comments? Seeing none, vote will come on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much. Citizens' comments. Are there any citizens in the audience, in person or online, who would like to make a comment on an item not on tonight's agenda and falls within the committee's purview?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve Sherlock, 13 Magnolia Drive, Community Information Director, Franklin Matters, Franklin Public Radio. Just want to take the opportunity to two things. One, quickly, the football game, as mentioned earlier, Franklin TV is coordinated with King Philip, so it will be jointly worked to be broadcast. It will be on the Panther TV channel. The URL you can go to Franklin Matters or franklin.news. There's a Panther icon. Click on that. It takes you to the live link. The link itself will be posted through all the social channels. We'll certainly share it with the schools so they can share it out through their social channels, but that'll be broadcast. Secondly is an ask for the community, and I believe committee member Charles shared it through his piece. The TV studio is looking to better understand who watches, who listens, and who reads to get Franklin news, so that it'll better help us understand what we can do to improve the effectiveness of what we are doing, i.e. broadcasting tonight. Chris is in the booth doing this. I recorded the 2 subcommittee meetings earlier. That happens. As mentioned, the TV is going to be broadcasting the football game. But what kind of a reach do we have? Early results say half the people here don't even know we have a radio station. So we have an opportunity. So The link is available. It's on various Facebook pages. It'll come to Franklin News, Franklin Matters. You'll see the link there to take the survey. We just asked that you take the survey. It's like 10 questions, but you don't get all 10. If you answer you don't watch TV, you don't get the next 2 follow-on. If you do, then you get the how and what shows you watch. So it should be a very quick one. We just asked for your input. We're looking to improve our service to the community as well, and we need your help to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
I think we should put Steve on Netflix, and then we're gonna,
Watch that documentary. Nobody else online? Great. So then I'm moving on to new business.
new business. Next meeting, we are going to be inviting the principals who are involved in the reorganization, who will lead the future building schools, to provide an update. You've heard a lot from me, from Colin, from Paula and Tina, and at this point, we're looking to bring in the principals of the schools to share a little bit of more information around the update, their steering committees, the progress they're making, and that will include pre-K through grade 8, and we are also going to ask Dr. Weber to return as well to share some of the updates of what's happening at the high school as well.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
And one more thing, as is customary, when we have a team that wins the state tournament, or if it's a different, but beyond athletics, if there's some state level recognition that's earned once confirmed, we invite those students in to be recognized by school committee. So we have the cheerleaders from the fall that are the confirmed state champs at this point. So I anticipate inviting them to come to the meeting like we've done in the past to be recognized. And then, as we will do throughout the year, anyone else who receives some state recognition equivalent to that type of level, we will continue to invite them in. Okay?
All right, that's fantastic.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, now we will be adjourning to executive session and will not be returning to open meeting. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21-2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions, contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Is there a motion?
Move to enter executive session as discussed.
Second?
Second.
All right, discussion, questions, seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.